Howdy folks, it's Age of the Hunting Gear Guy, and this is the Aero Survival Rifle, or ASR, by TNW Firearms. It's a semi-automatic pistol caliber carbine. They also have the 22 versions that they're coming out with pretty soon. That's kind of neat. Just before we get too far, why don't we safety check this thing? So I'm going to remove the magazine by pressing in on the left-hand side, pulling out this Glock magazine in 9mm. And then to lock the action to the rear, I'm going to pull down and pull it out into that cutout there, where we can see that that action is fully clear and there's nothing in the chamber. So why don't we take a closer look at this thing. Now, starting at the rear here, we've got this collapsible buttstock. This is just like you'd find on any AR-15 really, so I won't focus on this guy too much. The grip, again, standard AR-15 grip there, so some really familiar components on this thing. When we get to the front here, that's where things are getting a little bit different. Our safety is right in front of the trigger guard. Let's zoom you guys in a little bit. There we go. There's our safety just in front of the trigger guard. And there's the safety turning on. Now there's our slot for the bolt handle to grab onto. I don't know how I'm going to do this on film, but it's so tight getting in there that it's really hard to do that elegantly and have you guys see. But it's very easy to knock that thing off and get it ready to roll again. Boy, I'm glad my hand wasn't on the other side. One of the things about having this completely open port, oh boy, let's open this thing up again. One of the problems with having this completely open port is that you can, as you're handling it, cover that up with your other hand. Now, as you can see here with the bolt locked to the rear, we've got a full open chamber here, which is open on both sides, so it makes it very easy to get to spent ammo, or if there's a case or a jam or something like that, I guess it would be very easy to get to. I didn't have any jams with this gun, so kind of a moot point for me, but very easy to get in there, even though this is a little bit difficult to get into place. Now on the left-hand side is where we have this magazine release button. It's actually sticking out a little bit from the surface there. And the idea here is that you're going to push that and then pull your magazine out at the same time. They do drop free, so you don't need to pull them, but I just like to do it in one smooth motion because my thumb is there anyways. I found the trigger to be creepy and heavy, but actually got some good accuracy out of it just because it breaks. It's such a surprise. So as long as you're on target and you're slowly pulling on this thing, oh, I guess I got to put safety off. There we go. You'll see that it creeps down there and then fires. That's at right about 10 pounds. It's got quite a heavy trigger spring on there, so I wonder if it can be helped by working on that. Now at the front of the rifle, we have a couple of extra spots for more rails. We've got some spots on the sides here. We've got some spots on the bottom where you can see this rail is on, and we've got some spots on the other side. So if you want to, you can throw rails on the front here. Next up, we've got this barrel nut, which is just friction fit on by hand. Let's go ahead and pull that guy off. And then the barrel just pulls right out. There's our locating pin recess right along the top there, and that just goes along the top of the rifle. Here, I'll just clean that off and maybe it'll be easier to see. There we go. And yeah, there's that locating pin recess that goes into the barrel. And if you're interested, that's what the breech of this rifle looks like. Breech? To the breech. Now this barrel's marked 9 for 9mm, and you can see that this is captured on there, so that's not going to come off. And there are no muzzle devices. And for a rifle like this, I agree with this. There shouldn't be any muzzle devices on a survival rifle. While we're here, why don't we take the rest of this rifle apart. First, I'm going to lock the bolt to the rear, just to kind of get out of the way. I'm just going to lightly press out those, there's 2 pins here. Right here, and they're going to lightly press out to give me a 2 shell, kind of like an AR-15 kind of a thing. go. I'll go ahead and pull those pins out. There's the front pin. This back pin's really stiff for mine, so I'm just gonna knock it out real quick here. There's my lower, and you can see inside there's the hammer, there's the ejector, and we've got, is this dual ejector? I'm not sure what that other one's doing there. The hammer, let's just carefully ease it forward there. It's just a little flat, straight kind of a deal. And it looks like it's got a sear that's buried a little bit deeper in there. So very similar to an, somewhat similar to an AR-15, but there's the lower. Now this pin at the back here is just for locating for the end plate so that it can use AR-15 style buffer tubes and buttstocks. And it fits in right here on this guy. So here's my quote-unquote upper. And you can see it's got these two pins here. Those two pins actually fit into recesses right there. So that's kind of how this thing goes together, is that those two pins offer the friction to keep it all together. To remove the bolt, what I'm going to have to do is push it forward. And then, because the bolt handle is just a little bit too far forward, I'm actually going to have to push it back. Oh, this is, I did this without having to do this on camera earlier, but let's see if I can do it. I know I'm not going to be able to get enough grip. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's my bolt handle out. I'm going to slowly ease out the rest of it there. I'm going to grab some paper towel here so I don't mess up my nice backdrop. There's my bolt. The recoil spring in there is actually held captive by a couple of pins. There's one pin right here and there's another pin right there. And those stick out into the action right about there. So you can see that guy holding, and it will actually won't be able to get past there. So I'll have to, if I really wanted to pull this guy out, I'd have to pull that screw and those pins out as well, but I'm not going to get that involved because this actually shouldn't get that dirty. This one right now isn't that dirty, so I'm just going to leave it and just go ahead to the bolt. Now there's my bolt itself. It's quite a big, heavy bolt, which you kind of expect on a blowback 9mm. There's the face of the bolt. Now when cleaning this thing, I found the most propellant was kind of stuck under these two grooves here, so that's you'll really have to scrub it out. Now in terms of using the ASR, there are a couple of interesting things. One, right at the front here we've got these finger grooves because there's not really much of a forend to grab onto here. So the idea is you can grab on there and that puts your thumb right in the right place for the magazine release. The bolt is also kind of handy. It is a little bit hard to get it into this. It's a sleeve here, but taking it out is quite easy. The bolt is pretty stiff on pulling back. A little bit of oil helps a lot. And it's actually quite fun to shoot. Now I found that this one in particular, it would shoot loose after a while, so if you're going to go to the range and fire like 100 rounds or something like that, this barrel nut here might start loosening off. But it's not really what this rifle's for. This rifle isn't really for taking out to the range and plinking away with, right? It's more of a survival rifle. The magazine release is pretty easy to actuate. The magazines seat themselves fairly easily inside that magazine well, so not really any complaints there. It would be nice to have a magazine release on the right hand side, but oh well, so be it, right? The safety is fine. It's in the right kind of a spot. It's a little bit hard to turn off, but not really any complaints there. The trigger itself is very hard, so I'm just gonna double check my chamber is empty there, and just pulling this trigger, it's got kind of a second stage to it. Oh, it was really light that time. It's actually quite heavy. So with this one, I was seeing right around 10 pounds. What? So just a couple of really quick usability findings, I guess, if you can call it that, on the TNW. One, I kind of like the this grip up here, but it is easy to put your hand in the wrong spot. You're actually supposed to grip the magazine quite a bit and only grab just a little bit on the front there. And the reason is if you go up too high on it, you end up covering over that left side ejection port with your thumb, and you might get some debris or some hot gas or something like that on there. So you really do need to keep it low, and the proper way to do that is to grip that magazine. Once you're in that position, it is nice and tight. There's not really a lot of weight up front anyways, so you don't have to have a high up hold on it to keep it steady. And this kind of a rifle is meant for kind of quick shooting up close, so you shouldn't really need that long hold anyways. With the optic, you will need something that's AR height, so it's a little bit higher up off the rail. When I was testing this thing, I didn't have some high rings for the scope I was using, so it ended up being quite low, but this is a lot more comfortable and familiar with an AR-15 style height. The buttstock is just like anything that you get on an AR-15. It's extendable out with multi different positions, so you can pick the position that you feel comfortable with and run with that, and you can stow it to bring anywhere. Using the magazine, it's not that bad. It's got a magazine release just on the side here, and as you're, whoa, that's way too close. As you're firing, and if you're empty and you hear a click, you can very quickly pull it out and throw in a new one, and then charge it and then go off to the races again. The charging handle is pretty stiff, and it can be kind of hard to get into that slot up there. Oh man, it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just a little bit tight getting in there, but it's easier when you don't have it shouldered and you're just pulling it over. But boy, is it ever tight. Oil does help on this rifle. The trigger itself. The trigger itself is quite heavy as well. It's right around 10 pounds, but it's got kind of like this creepy break to it that might actually work for you because you can't accurately preload it. What might end up happening is that as you're on the target, you're gonna drop the hammer without really knowing when it's gonna drop. So I've had a couple of guns like this. The Norinco T97 was also like that. Had a trigger that would just creep quite a bit, but then would just fall, and I kind of like it. I kind of like it because that'll give an accurate shot, because it's very difficult to flinch when you have that kind of a trigger, because you can't accurately predict when it's going to happen anyways. So pretty interesting. The safety is fine. It's just a cross bolt right in front of the trigger there, so it's quite easy to get to while you're on target, and works quite well, so not really any complaints there. Now, well, this particular one is in 9mm. They also come in 40, 357 SIG, 10mm. So if you want to go hunting with some of these things, I guess you could. And they're also working on a 22 and I believe a 17 HMR. I can't remember if I saw that correctly or not, but they're pretty interesting. I would be really interested to try one of these in 22, because I think for like a survival rifle, something that you're going to take out into the bush and use, like if you're in a life or death situation kind of a thing, I think I'd rather have a 22 and a pile of ammo than a 9mm and just a little ammo. But that's my own personal philosophy. You guys might differ. So again, that was the TNW ASR. It's a semi-automatic pistol caliber carbine. You could use this for hunting. You could use it for plinking, but I think this is best suited for unknown situations where you might just need to pack a really compact rifle into a backpack and go out to the backcountry, or go out and go flying or something like that. So if you need something for a survival situation like that, check out the TNW ASR. Thanks for watching.